Donald Trump and the news go together so well. It's 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 hard to think back to the days when I criticised George Bush, or even when I criticised Obama. When you compare it to the amount of scandals that come out against Trump. So right now, obviously, we have the Russian hacks, the Russian interference with the US election. And as more and more information breaks and more people are willing to speak out against Trump, we get so much more. It goes back years and years when him and his dipshit children used to brag that Russians were their main clientele for their real estate. And then you look at who these actual people were, and it turns out that these are people who are closely linked to the Russian mafia. You do a bit more digging, and while it's not a solid fact at the moment, there are very strong indications that it was money laundering. Real estate is the best way to launder money. Let's face it, if a place is going for $250,000, you can very easily sell that for 20-30 million just by saying, well, there was a lot of bids and this was obviously the best bid. But that was then. Let's bring it up much closer. Trump has attacked every single ally that the US has, whether it's Theresa May, whether it's Angela Merkel, Justin Trudeau, it's everyone that is considered an ally of the US, Trump has attacked. The first year he kept talking down to Kim Jong-un. Stupid, incredibly stupid, but then when he meets him, it's nothing but praise and sucking up to the man because he just loves dictators. Then we look at Russia. From the get-go, Trump raised or lifted the tariffs that America had set against Russia because they invaded Crimea. Trump got rid of them on day one. He did absolutely nothing bad or said nothing bad against Russia, against Putin, right up until the Salisbury attack in the UK. And that's when he said, well, we're going to put sanctions on Russia and we have to stand firm against them, blah, blah, blah. What did he actually do? Came out, said a few things, didn't put any sanctions on whatsoever. Again, to this day, he has had no negative actions towards Russia, towards Putin. In fact, when Putin won that sham of an election, despite the fact that everyone around Trump said, no, don't call him, don't congratulate him, that's not what we do to dictators, you fucking moron, Trump did it. Not only did Trump do it, but he then badmouthed everyone who was around him on the phone to Vladimir Putin. That's the kind of guy Donald Trump is. But then we get into finding out what Trump actually knows and what he was told. Well, we've recently found out that before his inauguration, before he actually became president of the USA, he was told, look, there's been a number of people who have tried to interfere in the elections. Not specifically Russia. China has tried doing it too. I believe North Korea is in there. There is another country that I can't quite remember the name of just yet. But at that point, it wasn't you're president because of Russia. It wasn't that at all. That's not what was said. It was people going to the head of state saying, look, we have issues here. Our democracy is under attack. This is something you need to be aware of. So from day one, he knew that Russia and other countries were able to at least make an attempt of an attack on American politics. And he did nothing against it. He's done nothing to protect it. He's done nothing to update the securities. Nothing whatsoever. Then it gets to the recent press briefing that him and Putin did together. Before going into that, he was told, look, Russia did, at the very least, attempt to hack the ballot boxes. It's not just social media that they used. They actually attempted to hack the ballot boxes. We don't know if they did, but that's what they attempted. So what did Trump say? Well, when he was on stage with Putin, he came out and said, well, my guys are saying that Russia attempted to hack in, but I've asked Putin, he said, hey, they didn't do it. I believe him. He's also said that if we give him all the evidence, he'll look into it for us. Isn't that great? What a great proposal. For everyone that's still supporting Donald Trump, that still thinks he's some kind of genius, imagine if the police had gone to Charles Manson and said, hey, look, this is all the evidence we have that you're a disgusting mass murdering piece of scum. Here it all is. Now you can help us fill in everything else. Do you really think that's something that would happen? Do you really think that someone doing that actually wants a proper investigation? Now, of course, he faced a lot of backlash because of that. I think when he got back to the US, someone actually sat him down and said, look, you unbelievable moron. The only reason you haven't been impeached is because Republicans have been protecting you throughout this entire time, and now you've committed treason. So he's backtracked a little bit, but given previous actions from Trump, I very much doubt he's actually going to do anything. And it's an issue. It's a worrying issue because they have midterms coming up. They have another elections. Pretty much every year there are elections in the US, and for the most part, Putin is very much pro-Republicans. He's incredibly pro-Trump. He said it during this press briefing that he wanted Trump to win. That's not ambiguous at all. He wants Trump in power. He owns Trump. Now, the worrying part of this is there has been a progressive movement in the US. Social Democrats are growing, progressive movement is growing, and the upside of that is that should the right people get into power, people like Nancy Pelosi getting kicked out because she is a waste of space, but the right people getting in would mean that America would actually finally get a free healthcare service, which is something that they don't have, which is insane. They would actually be able to sort out the education. It was recently announced that a Republican judge said that children do not have a right to learn how to read. That was actually said this year. In fact, that was a story I read end of last month. That is the state of America because of American politics right now. And you have every single American intelligence agency saying Russia, at the very least, attempted to hack into the ballot boxes. They had an influence on the election. It could happen again. You have representatives like Jim Jordan, who's a Republican, saying this isn't an issue. Russians trying to hack in to the ballot boxes is not an issue because they seem to be siding with Republicans. But black people, no, don't let black people vote. Latinos, God no, don't let them vote. But Russians who vote in favour of Republican, yeah, they can interfere all they want. Of course, you have got people like Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Paul Ron coming out saying, no, this is horrible, we must take a stand. But unfortunately, when you look at what those people actually do, especially Ted Cruz, I mean, fucking hell. You want to look at a more pathetic man. Donald Trump insulted his wife. Mercilessly insulted his wife during the primaries. And in the beginning, Ted Cruz was, oh, you insulted my wife, I'm coming after you, mister. A very George McFly way. But then what happened? Well, he lost the primary, and then he was calling people on behalf of Donald Trump to vote for Donald Trump. There has never been a more pathetic human being in American politics. But that's the state. That's the situation that we're in. Trump is in bed with Russia. It's that simple. Putin owns Donald Trump. If at this point you still don't see that, then you're either blissfully ignorant of the world around you, or you just don't want to see it. But the reason why I bring that up here is, well, it's an interesting story, but what happens in America reflects what happens in the UK. And there were stories coming out last year that Russia not only affected the American 2016 election, but also that they might have interfered in the UK election. Russia is Putin is very, very smart. Russian government is very smart. So with everything that's coming out, everything that we're learning, the NRA having unbelievable ties to Russia, they have a prayer breakfast group, something I'd never heard of till yesterday. Everyone a part of that having very strong ties to Russia. In fact, people, obviously it's prayer breakfast, so it's a very religious thing, it's very Christian, very evangelical. Russians have flown them out to Eastern Europe so that they can campaign against the LGBT community, something that Russia is very, very much against. Russia hates the LGBTQ community. You can see that with everything they do. But the goal for that, for Russia, when you break everything down, is what's better? Having a country like the UK, who would have someone who has policies who have been validated by economic specialists, policies that have been validated to say they would absolutely work, they would absolutely benefit the country? Or would you rather have your adversaries being led by someone who cuts the police, who cuts the fire brigade, who destroys the NHS, who cuts education, who forces families into poverty, who forces 70,000 disabled people into extreme poverty, taking on average £20,000 away from them each? A story that came out this morning, yes, Esther McVeigh is 100% responsible for that. Which is better? An adversarial country that is being destroyed by its own government, or a country that thrives? Now, I've not seen any updates to the allegations that Russia affected or interferes in UK politics. But we did see the bit with Cambridge Analytica. One of the things that were grotesquely looked over was Cambridge Analytica was also getting massive payments from the Tories. There are only so many patterns you can ignore before something truly awful happens. We're in such a state right now with our country, with our politics, that we cannot afford massive blunders anymore. 70,000 disabled people are being screwed over by Esther McVeigh. Police force being cut to shreds. NHS cut to shreds. Social care cut to shreds. At every single turning point, our elected officials act as if this is a glorious plutocracy, a country that only looks after the rich and the wealthy. These are people who were born into money. These are people, whether you like it or not, are not acting in the best interests of the UK. So it's a good story to keep an eye on.